I'll Take the Rain. I have a complicated relationship with the Reveal album. I don't like it, but I don't hate it. I think there's a good album, a really good album, maybe even a classic in there somewhere, but as it stands, it feels overlong and the individual songs are overlong, and I don't think the lush, polished, dreamy electronic production particularly suited the band. Then again, I don't think R.E.M. did themselves any favours with any of their production choices, post-automatic for the people. If I had three wishes, one of them would be that R.E.M., instead of recording Accelerate and Collapse Into Now, neither of which contain a single song I like, had re-recorded Up, New Adventures and Reveal in their old jangle style. Still, I won't haul a band over the coals for trying new things. At this stage in their career, R.E.M. had earned the right to do whatever the hell they wanted, but I won't pretend to like it either. I'll Take the Rain is one of the best songs on Reveal. I almost cut it from this list for being too long. It just drags on. But it's still one of the most beautiful songs they ever wrote, and it's one of Stipe's best vocal performances. It deserved better. I sometimes wonder if R.E.M. actually realised how good a song they'd written in this one. Carnival of Sorts. The R.E.M. we know and love. This appears on their first EP, but not any of the albums. Had R.E.M. chosen to peddle this punky, angular, jangle rock for their entire career, I'd have had no complaints. R.E.M. would write better songs than this, of course, but they'd never recapture the raw, punkish energy of these early recordings. Stipe would grow into an accomplished, confident, versatile singer, but God, how I love the quality of his voice on Chronic Town. Ages of You. Just a pretty song. It was recorded for Reckoning, but apparently they just got tired of it, which is a shame. I think it would have slotted nicely onto Reckoning. I'm not sure where, somewhere on side 2, maybe the first song. There's weaker songs than this on Reckoning, another one that deserved better. Me and Honey. This was one of my least favourite songs on Out of Time when it came out, but it just grew and grew on me. It continues to grow, a simple 2-chord driving repetitive riff. Imitation of Life. Another from Reveal, and arguably the most R.E.M. song on that album. The words are a bit sugary and I found them a bit grating at first, but I guess they're supposed to be. One of their best later period choruses. I Don't Sleep, I Dream. The first time R.E.M. did moody with overtly sexual lyrics, it kind of works, carried by the restrained aggression of the chorus. There's a great moment after the last verse when the drums drop for the chorus. I loved Monster when it came out, and I still think it's a great album, but I've become less enamoured with it over the years, and it's not really in my rotation anymore. I haven't listened to it in its entirety for years. I can't remember the last time. This is one of its best songs. Welcome to the Occupation. Works particularly well within the context of the album and as a companion piece to Exhuming McCarthy, but it's still a great song in its own right. It bounces along quite nicely for the first half, then kicks up a gear, climaxing with Stipe's wailed Listen to Me outro. Cahutek. Fables is a strange album. It's underrated in R.E.M.'s catalogue, full of tracks that sound strange and ugly on first listen, require repeat listens and a bit of effort on the listener's part. Cahutek is one such. There's something just off-centre about this song. Stipe sounds lost, like he's feeling his way through the song and has to keep being guided back to the chorus by that driving bass riff. Named after a comet that started a media frenzy in 1973, but whose name would become synonymous with spectacular disappointment. These Days. Life's Rich Pageant is my least favourite of the classic era R.E.M. albums. That said, it does have its moments. It's grown on me over the years and has one of, if not the strongest 4-song openings on any of the R.E.M. albums. Here in this song we have a wistful, up-tempo stomper with great backing vocals from Mills. All album tracks should be this good. Shaking Through. It's one of my favourite R.E.M. verses, though I've always found the chorus a bit of a letdown. There's also a rare R.E.M. songwriting misstep in letting this song run on too long by just repeating that somewhat bland chorus. I really love the verse though, hence its inclusion here. King of Birds. One of the most experimental songs R.E.M. had recorded up until this point. Originally written for Life's Rich Pageant, it would have been interesting to hear its folk drone within the context of that album, but I still think it probably works better here on Document. Driver 8. There's a lot to love in this song. The main riff, a great verse, a great chorus, a great post-chorus, but it's still a ways away, and a shift in tonal colour around 1 minute 40 when the song seems to flirt with a key change, and we get this melancholy section. A way to shield the hated heat, where the ground of the song seems to drop out. Great lyrics too. They follow the journey of a train and its conductor, but like much of R.E.M.'s material, particularly the early material, its southern gothic imagery and abstract storytelling are difficult to pin down. Saw a treehouse on the outskirts of a farm. Simple, effective, vivid. Exhuming McCarthy. It's still R.E.M. in jangle mode, but the guitar tone is more pointed. The album on the whole sees a greater use of distortion, and it's also the point where R.E.M. started shifting away from the above-mentioned Southern Gothic lyrics and started incorporating politics. Even so, it's still kind of cryptic. It appears to be about jingoism, blind patriotism, and consumer nationalism, but God knows, you could probably interpret this however you want. It has something of an odd song structure, and almost sounds like it was pasted together from several different ideas. The One I Love. It's one of their signature tunes, and I know many R.E.M. fans would rank this one significantly higher, and I do like it. It is, objectively, a great song. It's weird that I should find myself here instead of singing the song's praises, apologising for not liking it more, and I do feel bad about it. I know I should like it more, but I just never seem to connect with it in a way that others do. It was the most standard rock song R.E.M. had ever done up until this point in their career. Maybe that's got something to do with it. I don't know. Also, I don't know why he's shouting fire in the chorus. It feels incongruous. Orange Crush. I'm thinking now this should be higher. It's such a good song, one of R.E.M.'s best riffs. I used to get Kerrang, a heavy metal magazine when I was a kid, and I remember being excited and a little bit confused seeing them review this single. The review was 2 sentences long. It said something like, "This song is so good, you lot won't like it though." Shiny Happy People. The infamous one. I've loved R.E.M. since I was a teenager, and it caused me no end of consternation that this should have been the song that broke the band. Losing My Religion reached number 19 here in the UK. Orange Crush 28, The One I Love 51. Shiny Happy People reached number 6. Suddenly it was everywhere. All my friends were going, hoo, isn't R.E.M. that band you're always going on about? Guys, I told them, listen to the album. That song is not representative. But no one would listen to the album, given that ridiculous video and song. Time would prove me right, of course, as it usually does. And now that Shiny Happy People is 20-something years behind us, we can be objective. It's a great song, simple as. Is it corny? I used to think it was, but I don't think it is anymore. The whimsy doesn't sound sincere. I think there's a darkness in there somewhere. It's the bright, colourful facade of a funhouse. It's also an utterly unique song that sounds like nothing that came before or has done since. The bridge does a lot of the heavy lifting in the song, the gold and silver shine leading into that dancing chorus riff. I've always liked it. I was afraid to admit it once. I'm not afraid anymore. We Walk. The end of Murmur is one of my favourite R.E.M. album endings, shaking through into We Walk into West of the Fields. Great pacing. This is a slow one. It's got a nursery rhyme-like quality. I'm not sure how well it would survive outside the album. One of its strengths within the context of the album is that it serves as a lighter counterweight to the rest of the album, which, like the cover, feels like something half buried in moss, murky, evasive, willful and indecipherable. Maps and Legends. Mike Mills' melodic bass playing doesn't get nearly enough credit. He's the closest thing we have to Paul McCartney, possibly the only person who could have replaced him, had R.E.M. and the Beatles been contemporaneous. Here is a solid R.E.M. song with everyone doing what they do best. That melodic bass line, the jangle riffs, the Southern Gothic lyrics, Mike Mills' backing vocals. I never hear anyone mention this song. A deeply underrated one, and a great way to pull us out of the creeping horror of feeling gravity's pull. Laughing. One of Murmur's best album tracks. I like how it seems to go together with Pilgrimage. In my head, they are brother and sister tracks. I have difficulty separating them mentally. Country Feedback. Out of Time is another of my favourite R.E.M. albums in terms of closing songs. Texarkana, Country Feedback and Me and Honey. This was the album where they completely cut ties, well, nearly, from their classic sound. Document marked a heavier rock approach. Green was more expansive and experimental, but both albums were still recognisably R.E.M. Out of Time was a different beast, pulling away from their post-punk roots and leaning into folk. Country Feedback is a long, slow, country-tinged ballad, almost conversational, beautiful, intense and deeply depressing. I loved it when I was younger. I find it kind of disturbing now. The slide guitar is like a devil whispering in Stipe's ear, urging him on with his almost deranged rant. When Stipe runs out of steam towards the end of the song, the guitar picks up and drives onwards, sounding almost as unhinged as he did. Ebo the Letter. Lead single from New Adventures in Hi-Fi. It's got shades of Country Feedback, though it's not quite as dark or unhinged. There's shades of light in the darkness here. Texarkana. Mike didn't sing many songs, but the ones he does are all great. Here's another. This one always makes me feel a bit sad. This was the last true R.E.M. song they would ever record, by which I mean a song driven by Peter Buck's arpeggiated guitar. It represents the end of a journey and the start of a new one. Peter's guitar playing was like a comfort blanket, and after this song we venture forth into places where we might not always feel comfortable. I once met a girl from Texas and we were talking about R.E.M. and I said Texarkana was one of my favourite songs. She said she's been there and the song really captured the feel of the place. I don't know about that. I like to think it's true. Turn You Inside Out. The heaviest song on Green. This one was a grower for me. It actually took me years to realise that this was one of the album's strongest songs. One of my favourite Mike Mills backing vocal performances, his I Believe in Watching You refrain set this one off. Monty got a raw deal. We're into the business end of the list now. Everything from here on out is not just peak R.E.M, but peak music, essential listening for any music fan. This is the first song from Automatic on my list. In my head, the song is a slow, mournful ballad, and I always find myself surprised listening to it that it's actually quite an up-tempo, rocky number. When the drums kick in after that gentle opening, it feels simultaneously jarring and organic. One of Stipe's most restrained and vulnerable vocal performances. I love the sound of the fingers sliding down the strings at the start of the song. What sort of a monster engineers out things like that? Feeling Gravity's Pull. Something of an outlier in R.E.M's catalogue in the sense that R.E.M had never sounded so menacing. In many ways, it's an ugly song, particularly that opening and recurring riff. We do get some relief in the form of the step up chorus, but fresh horror in the shape of a creepy cello outro. One of R.E.M's best album openers and one that perfectly sets the tone for the darker feel of this album. Romance. One of the first songs that the band wrote together. It was cut from Murmur but later appeared, re-recorded on the eponymous collection, which is not only the best R.E.M. collection but one of the best greatest hits collections ever. The original version of Romance has never been released, but it's been leaked online and you can hear it on YouTube. Like Ages of You, it's another one that they apparently just got bored of. Don't know if it would have fit on Murmur, but I can see it on Document, maybe. So Fast, So Numb. I used to buy my records from a local hole-in-the-wall record shop in the back corner of an indoor market. Music Aquarium, if you happen to give a shit. I bought New Adventures in Hi-Fi the day it came out, and when I went in, they were playing this song, and I stood there listening to it, and I knew that the album was going to be good. In fact, this is the last R.E.M. album I can say I love. They lost a limb when Barry left. Finest Work Song. There's something strange about this song, and I can't quite put my finger on what. Whatever. Document is an important album. Along with Green, it's a transitional album as the band moved away from their classic sound towards more expansive experimental material. Unlike U2, their contemporaries, the shift towards experimentalism wasn't quite as sudden. U2 went from Joshua Tree to the avant-garde industrial rock of Achtung Baby in the space of a single album. R.E.M., ever the gentleman, eased it in a bit slower. Document is not the end of R.E.M. as we know it, but it's something of a different beast. If Document and the preceding 4 albums were animal species, Document would still be able to breed with them, but not produce viable offspring. Finest Work Song is the album opener. Stipe's vocals, previously pushed back in the mix and often mumbled, here are front and centre, and he'd never sounded so brash and confident. Don't Go Back to Rockville. This is the most country song they ever did, even more so than Country Feedback, and it's sublime start to finish. It's also one of the few early R.E.M. songs that sounds like it means something. I mean, you can tell what this one is about, the closest thing to storytelling they ever recorded. Rockville sounds like a shithole. I wouldn't go there, and thank Mr. Stipe for his warning. I do find myself wondering if she did go back sometimes. I think she probably did. Or he, I don't know. R.E.M. were never much for pronouns in their rare love songs. The End of the World as We Know It. One of R.E.M.'s most recognisable songs, almost a signature tune. Michael Stipe's Subterranean Homesick Blues. If you were an R.E.M. fan and bought Document back in 1987 and were feeling a bit unsure of the band's new sound, unsure if this harder rock direction was going to work, well, this song closes side 1 and by the time it finished, you'd have been feeling okay. Objectively, one of R.E.M.'s strongest songs, but it's lower down my list than it should be for not ending where it should have and instead coming back to repeat the chorus 10 times. It's like an encore at a farewell concert. What's the Frequency, Kenneth? The perfect album opener, one of their best, also one of their hardest rocking songs. Again, credit is due to Mike's backing vocals. Here, he actually harmonises with Stipe and the effect in the chorus is incredibly powerful. Best song from Monster and one of the best songs in their catalogue. Pop Song 89. Another great R.E.M. album opener. similar to Stand in a number of ways, but it's still a great song in its own right. Talk About the Passion, one of the band's most emotionally direct early tracks, even though, like much of their material, it resists clear interpretation. It's understated, simple, but a quiet standout on a standout album all the same. The Voice of Harold. By some strange quirk of fate, Dead Letter Office was the second R.E.M. album that I bought, and I'd already played it to death before buying Reckoning. Hearing Seven Chinese Brothers for the first time was therefore a somewhat strange experience. I still get an uncanny feeling when listening to it and hearing this mellow, sweet, short-haired boy, instead of Reverend Bill Thunderbunk Sings He Cared That Much For Me. Therefore, for me, The Voice of Harold is the definitive version. If you prefer Seven Chinese Brothers, you get no argument from me, though there is a twisted genius to The Voice of Harold, whereby a frustrated Michael Stipe snatches a random LP out of a stack and starts singing the album notes. The production is much rawer than Seven Chinese Brother. It's got an almost demo quality. It's not bad enough to render it unlistenable. It's got its own charm, I guess. They really should have gone with these lyrics on the final Reckoning version. I think it fits better with their Southern Gothic vibe than a song about Chinese brothers swimming in an ocean. Harbour Coat, one of their fastest early songs, probably wouldn't have sounded out of place on Chronic Town. One of my favourite R.E.M. verses, utterly impenetrable lyrics, unless he is actually singing about a coat. I don't know if it subjectively justifies a ranking this high. I just love it. Maybe it's a personal thing. Much of R.E.M.'s early material were, for me, growers, but I fell in love with this song after about 20 seconds of hearing it for the first time, and my passion for it has never wavered. Even at their fastest and rawest, early R.E.M. still manages to sound plaintive and elegiac. They didn't play this one live much, but they did it at Olympia, which is worth listening to if you haven't. It's pretty much the album version, but with a bit more punch from the guitars. Stand. Green is such a good album. I've got 5 songs on this list from the album, and on another day there might have been more. Stand is pop alternative rock perfection. But there's something quite subversive about it. Maybe it's the fact that R.E.M. had at this point spent 5 albums peddling wistful, post-punk Southern Gothic to the extent that you don't quite trust Stan's upbeat, poppy, optimistic tone. I still don't. I eye it with suspicion and believe it's up to something. I just can't prove it. Green Grow the Rushes. The prettiest song on Fables. There is a world in which this song caused an argument in an IRS boardroom over its inclusion on the eponymous compilation. Driver 8 and Can't Get There From Here, one camp is shouting. Driver 8 and Green Grow the Rushes, the other is insisting. The Can't Get There From Here camp win. They got it wrong. Beautiful guitar melody and some of my favourite R.E.M. lyrics. Always Take the Weather With You by Crowded House always makes me think of this song. World Leader Pretend. For my money, it's the best song on Green. It's one of the few songs on the album that is essentially still driven by that jangle R.E.M. guitar sound, but there's also cello, piano, and steel guitar in there. It's moody and dark. I've always found the lyrics a bit disturbing, and it might have been too much if it wasn't for the absolutely beautiful melody. Ignoreland. It seems incongruous that one of the heaviest, hardest, and certainly angriest R.E.M. songs should appear on their most pastoral, laid-back album. Otherwise, Automatic is mostly slow and acoustic, almost folk rock. Ignoreland, however, sounds like something from the 70s and wouldn't feel out of place on Styx's Cornerstone. It doesn't feel out of place here either, and indeed feels like a natural change of pace, ushering in the album's last section. It's such a beautifully paced album. Why have I got this song so high? This is another one I don't hear fans talk about much. Maybe it's overshadowed by the big hits on Automatic. It has shades of The End of the World as We Know It in its rapid-fire chorus, a really deep, heavy sound. It's a credit to R.E.M. how many of their songs have such a unique identity. This sounds remotely like nothing else in their catalogue or anybody else's. So many of their songs fall into this category. Out of Time, Automatic and Green are full of songs like this. South Central Rain. If I had to pick a song that summed up early R.E.M., it would probably be this one. The wistful, melancholic, but never outright sad or dark tone, mid to up-tempo pace, jangling picked guitars, prominent Mike Mills bass and backing vocals, more cryptic Southern Gothic lyrics, and of course this trademark tune, one of those slightly odd melody lines that they do so well. How the West Was Won and Where It Got Us. The opening song on New Adventures, hushed vocals and a prominent piano trading off with the bass. The verse sounds cold and weird, but there's real warmth in the chorus. My favourite song on this strange album. Drive. A brooding, gentle folk song that slowly builds tension until it erupts halfway through, courtesy of an incendiary electric guitar and string section. Inspired by a David Essex song, from which it lifts lyrics, but it doesn't bear a great deal with in common beyond that. If you haven't heard Dear Rocky, a faster live version they do, I recommend it. Radio Free Europe. Peak early R.E.M, as raw and as punky as they ever got. For what it's worth, I prefer the eponymous version. That's maybe because I heard it first, but probably because, like Peter Buck said, the Murmur version is more polished but a little sedate. There seems to be some confusion as to whether the eponymous version is actually the Hibtone version, which it's labelled as, or actually the Easter mix. It's largely academic for the purposes of this list, doubly so since the Easter version is essentially a remaster of the Hibtone version. The Murmur version, however, is a completely different song. Either way, it's a stone-cold classic. I've got a mental list of places in musical history I would go back to in time if I could, and hearing R.E.M perform this in Tyrone's would be up there. Man on the Moon. Had to be there, didn't it? One of their biggest songs for a reason. It's one of their best, simple as. I love the live version too, where they give the chorus a bit more kick. It's a rolling, mid-tempo groove with a gentle country rock vibe. It does have the wistful, elegiac tone I've referred to here so often, but there's an undercurrent of optimism, lacking elsewhere in their earlier to mid-period. The chorus is one of their best. Lyrically cryptic, it is on the face of it a tribute to Andy Kaufman, clearly, which Stipe uses as a backdrop to explore belief, skepticism, and the thin line between reality and fiction. Absolutely majestic. Near Wild Heaven. The first of the Mike Mills songs on Out of Time, albeit with prominent Stipe backing vocals. Another of R.E.M's prettiest songs. A sweet melody and another catchy chorus built around vocal layering. It's a deceptive song. It sounds like summer, but there's sorrow disguised in it. I've liked it since day one, but this is one that's just crept up in my estimation over the years, and I'd now rank it as one of my absolute favourites. It serves an important purpose on Out of Time, along with Shiny Happy People, I guess, as to lift the mood, which is generally quite sombre. Its placing on Out of Time, after Low, one of the most unrelentingly depressing songs they ever did, is telling. We can praise R.E.M's albums, we can praise the songs, but we shouldn't forget to praise how well the songs work within the albums. R.E.M's albums are real albums, in the sense that they are not just collections of the 12 best songs that they wrote in between tours. Think of Feeling Gravity's Pull, kicking off Fables with a deliberate sense of unease, setting a tone for a darker, more surreal album, or Find the River, a gentle letting go after an album of death, memory and regret, or You Are Everything on Green, an emotional anchor after the raucous, slightly chaotic opening tracks. Gardening at Night. Appearing on Chronic Town and later on Eponymous, it's full of meaning, but not in a way you can explain. I have no idea if the song is literal, metaphorical, or both. They all work. It's one of those songs that I just love and can't really say why. Like Radio Free Europe, we have two main versions, the Chronic Town version and the Eponymous version. Eponymous has clearer, more assertive vocals. Chronic Town is somewhat rawer and mumbled. The Chronic Town version seems to get the nod from the consensus, but I prefer the Eponymous version. They're both good, just slightly different feels. Find the River. One of R.E.M's folkiest songs and also one of their most underrated. Beautiful verse, beautiful chorus, some of Stipe's best lyrics, and one of his best vocal performances. It's the perfect album closer. Automatic is almost a concept album, certainly the closest R.E.M ever came, and the central themes are, of course, death, nostalgia and loss. We return to the theme of death here, with the river as a simple metaphor for life's journey, fluid, inevitable, and ultimately leading to the sea, death. The song is almost a benediction, not triumphant by any means, but the main feel of the song is a kind of acceptance rather than fear. Losing My Religion. R.E.M's signature tune. It was the first single off Out of Time. I remember hearing it for the first time and being mildly disappointed. I don't know what I was thinking. What kind of a black mood must I have been in that day? I can't imagine anyone listening to this song for the first time and being anything other than moved to tears, let alone myself, who was already at this time a diehard R.E.M fan. It's a masterpiece, one of the best songs ever written. Why isn't it my number one? Well, two reasons. The Sidewinder Sleeps Tonight. Here's the first reason. There's something in this song that I can't put my finger on. I never get tired of it. Is it because it sounds so unlike anything else in R.E.M's catalogue while still sounding reassuringly familiar? The comical lyrics that should sound out of place on Automatic? The chord progression shift in the Cat in the Hat verse? Stipe almost corpsing on the Read It in Dr. Seuss line? There's something magic in this song. Fall on Me. And here we are. There's not much for me to choose between the top four, but if you jumped out at me in an alleyway with a gun and demanded what's your favourite R.E.M. song, Fall On Me would be my knee-jerk response. I've probably already said enough about Mike Mills' vocals, but his backing vocals really are R.E.M's secret weapon. Here we see them being used to probably their best effect in their catalogue, both in the overlapping lines in the chorus, what is it up in the air for, and the post-chorus, well I could keep it above but then it wouldn't be sky anymore, which he sings alone. Somewhere in the multiverse exists a universe where Michael Stipe never joined R.E.M. and Mills took vocal duties. How did they fare? Mills is an excellent vocalist in his own right and perfectly capable of fronting a band. Near Wild Heaven and Texarkana are two of my favourite R.E.M. songs. I wish he'd sung more. However, his voice, while distinctive in its own way, does lack the character of Stipe's, nor does it have Stipe's emotional range. However, Mills is probably the absolute perfect stooge to trade lines with Stipe. It's absolute serendipity that these two should have wound up in the same band. The song itself, a twisting verse, builds towards a climax before the Buy the Sky, Sell the Sky bridge takes over, and itself builds towards a second climax before the gut-wrenching chorus. There's so much going on in terms of melody in this song. Mills's counter-melody in the chorus could probably have stood on its own as a chorus in another song in its own right. Melodically satisfying then, but what elevates this song is its emotional heft. It doesn't seem right that, of all the songs R.E.M. recorded, their most emotionally resonant should have been something that is, on the face of it, a fairly standard mid-tempo radio rock song. But there it is. It's heartbreaking and uplifting at the same time. Absolute perfection. Also, in and out in 2 minutes 50. That's how you do it. As a quick addendum, these are not the only 50 R.E.M. songs that I like. Cutting it down to 50 was genuinely difficult, as there are songs that I really like, nay, love, which didn't make the list. Try Not to Breathe, Tongue, Strange Currencies, Leaving New York, Electrolyte, Undertow, Life and How to Live It, Good Advices, Lotus, Day Sleeper. Radio Song would be there and quite high up if it hadn't been for that awful rap section, and that's coming from somebody who likes rap. It's one of the worst creative choices they ever made. There's no Everybody Hurts and no Night Swimming. I don't particularly like them.
Where you come from is gone. Where you thought you were going to weren't never there. And where you are ain't no good unless you can get away from it.